A 6-year-old wiped her mother's tears in the dark, and a 400-year-old king felt his heart crack open for the first time since the Middle Ages. She wasn't crying. Not yet. Harlow Hayes pressed her fingertips against the cold glass of the Lumina Toys window and told herself firmly, the way you tell yourself things when you're running on 4 hours of sleep and $12 in your coat pocket. Do not cry on a public sidewalk in Manhattan. She didn't cry, but her lip was doing that thing. It was a freezing Saturday morning, November 15th. The wind coming off the streets between those glass skyscrapers had the particular cruelty of early winter. Sharp, wet, smelling of cold rain and hot pretzels from the cart on the corner. The Lumina Toys window glowed pink and warm under a row of soft display lights. Inside, on a little velvet pedestal, sat a blonde Barbie in a shimmering pink dress, her tiny plastic crown catching the light like something out of a fairy tale. Luna had been talking about that doll for 3 months. 3 months of mommy. Did you see the one with the sparkly dress? 3 months of drawing crayon Barbies at the kitchen table, while Harlow counted tip money into a mason jar on the counter. 3 months of a 6-year-old girl carrying the quiet, enormous hope that only children can carry, weightlessly, without knowing it's heavy. Now Luna stood beside her mother on that cold sidewalk. One small fist curled around the torn sleeve of Harlow's coat. Her eyes were wide and dark and very serious. Too serious for someone her age. No mischief in them, only a kind of hushed reverence. The way children look at things they love from a distance. Harlow swallowed hard. Sweetheart. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. Mommy can't afford to buy you that Barbie for your birthday this year. 2 seconds of silence. Then Luna let go of the coat sleeve and wrapped both arms around her mother's waist, pressing her cheek against Harlow's side. It's okay, Mommy. Her voice was very small. I still love you more than anything. You're my princess. But her eyes, still locked on the doll in the window, still shimmered. Harlow bit her lip, hard. I only have $12 left. Baby, the rent. They're going to ask us to leave if I can't. She stopped, pressed her fingers to her mouth, breathed. And your medicine. The doctor said. She didn't finish that sentence. Some things you don't say out loud on a sidewalk, even when you're alone, even when no one is listening. Luna reached up and wiped a tear from her mother's cheek with one small thumb. Then she held Harlow's face in both palms. Steady, unhurried, the way very old souls sometimes do, as if she were the one doing the comforting, as if she had been. Quietly, for longer than 6 years should allow. Those 2 small, warm hands against Harlow's cold face, that was the thing that nearly broke her completely. Harlow looked at her daughter, really looked, and thought, no child this age should know how to comfort like this. No child should have learned it so thoroughly, so early. And the guilt of that knowledge sat in her chest like something swallowed wrong. Permanent, impossible to dislodge. She had tried so hard to shield Luna from the weight of things. The overdue notices stuffed into the kitchen drawer. The pantry math done quietly after bedtime. The way Harlow always smiled first when Luna walked into a room, no matter what the previous minute had looked like. She had worked very hard at that smile. Some nights it was the most exhausting thing she did. And still, somehow, Luna had learned to comfort anyway. Because children always know. They absorb the temperature of a room the way skin absorbs cold. They don't need the words. They just know. Except 30 yards away, in the shadow of a recessed doorway across the street, a man stood perfectly still in the rain. black suit soaked through at the shoulders, dark hair, long, brushing his collar, moving in the wind. He hadn't moved in 11 minutes. Most people would have noticed something strange about that. Most people were not paying attention. His name was Caliph, and he heard every word, not because he was eavesdropping, because he couldn't not hear. His senses, sharpened across 487 years of existence, caught Harlow's whisper the way a tuning fork catches a note, involuntarily, completely, with no way to unhear it. But it wasn't the words that stopped him. It was the scent. The little girl's blood carried something ancient, rare, almost impossible. A bloodline that hadn't surfaced in 3 centuries. Pure, powerful, and twisted beneath its surface by a mutation that was slowly, quietly, destroying her from the inside. His fist tightened at his side. He had a choice right now. He always had a choice. 487 years had taught him that without mercy. Every moment is a door. Every door opens toward the light or away from it. A whisper escaped him, barely sound at all, swallowed immediately by the rain. No, I mustn't. But why? Why does she remind me so much of everything I failed to protect? One question hangs in the cold air. He could walk away right now, and no one would ever know he had been there. So why couldn't he move? Before we go further, drop "step in" or "walk away" in the comments right now. And stay with us, because what this man does next in the rain will change everything you thought you knew about kindness. Harlow Hayes had not always been the woman kneeling on a cold sidewalk, counting the days until eviction. There had been a version of her life, not long ago, really, where things were ordinary in the comfortable, unremarkable way that people don't appreciate until it's gone. She'd worked the morning shift at a small cafe just off Times Square, the kind of place with mismatched chairs and a chalkboard menu, and regulars who always ordered the same thing. She knew them all by name. She made a decent latte. She left every shift smelling like espresso and cinnamon. And she didn't mind. She saved every tip. Not for anything grand, just a better coat for Luna. A birthday cake with real buttercream frosting, not the tub kind. A copay, a buffer, the small, careful savings of a woman who knew that the distance between fine and not fine was shorter than most people liked to believe. When the cafe closed, she found that out firsthand. 3 months behind on rent now, the refrigerator running on essentials, milk, eggs, the big bag of pasta that was starting to feel less like a staple and more like a personality. She cleaned office buildings from 10 at night until 2 in the morning, did laundry for the Kowalski family downstairs on Wednesdays, skipped lunch, told herself she wasn't hungry, which was technically true in the way that things are true when you decide they are. Luna's birthday was Monday, November 17th. 2 days away. The doctor's words from last Tuesday still sat in Harlow's chest like a stone she couldn't put down. The treatment for her condition will run into the tens of thousands of dollars. Ms. Hayes, I want to be honest with you about the timeline. She'd nodded, very professionally, and then sat in her car in the parking garage for 22 minutes before she trusted herself to drive. She had spent those 22 minutes doing something she almost never allowed herself to do. She had simply stopped. Stopped performing. Stopped managing. Stopped calculating. And let the fear be exactly as large as it actually was. Which was enormous. Which was the size of a life she could not afford to lose. Because there was a 6-year-old girl at home drawing crayon Barbies under a crooked lampshade, and that girl needed her mother to walk back through that door. Not fine, not fixed, just present, just still there. She wiped her eyes, started the car, drove home. At night, Luna sat under the yellow lamp at the kitchen table, the one with the wobbly leg Harlow kept meaning to fix, and drew pictures. Barbies, mostly. Intricate crayon Barbies with elaborate gowns and carefully drawn crowns. She always drew one crown larger than the rest. Harlow asked about it once. Luna looked up, tongue tucked between her front teeth. That one's for the prince who hasn't arrived yet. He'll need a proper crown when he gets here. Harlow laughed, the real kind, surprised out of her, then stood at the sink for a moment, face turned away, collecting herself. Mommy, Luna said the following night, not looking up. If there's a prince somewhere out there, he'd buy me a Barbie, right? Harlow turned off the water, took a slow breath. I think a real prince would, she said. But real princes are pretty rare, baby. Luna considered this with the gravity of someone who had strong opinions and was not easily discouraged. I think there's one, she said. I think he's just not ready yet. Not far away. Never far. Now. Caliph watched. To look at him was to see a man of 32. Tall, composed, with the kind of stillness that reads as either arrogance or patience, depending on your mood. Gray eyes that caught light strangely. Dark hair kept longer than was fashionable. The habit of standing in shadows, less a choice now than an old reflex, carved in over centuries. He was, in fact, 487 years old. Vampire King of the New York clan, hidden CEO of Lumina Toys, a business empire built as a perfect, gleaming human facade. The toy company had been Alaric's idea 4 decades ago. You need something that looks generous, my lord, something that looks warm. Caliph had agreed because it was practical. He had not expected, somewhere along the way, to find that he actually cared about it. He had been human once. He'd had a wife, dark-haired, quick to laugh, and a daughter who collected smooth stones from the river and lined them up on the windowsill by size. The hunters had come on a December night, cold like this one. He had survived. They had not. He had ruled by one law since then, unbreakable as carved stone. Never hunt the innocent. Immortality was long. Longer than most creatures understood. He had watched civilizations rise and become archaeology. He had watched languages die mid-sentence. He had experienced the particular, grinding loneliness of outliving everything you ever loved. Not once, but repeatedly. Across centuries with no natural end in sight, he kept a single river stone on his desk, smooth, gray, small enough to close a fist around. He had carried it for 400 years and could not have told you, honestly, whether it was a keepsake or a punishment. He clung to his humanity carefully, deliberately, the way you tend a small flame in a drafty room, knowing that the moment you stop paying attention, it goes out. Every act of deliberate goodness was a choice to remain tethered, not to what he had lost, but to who he had been before the loss defined him. It was slow work, invisible work, the kind that produces no applause and no witnesses. He had long since stopped needing either. When Alaric entered the office that evening and placed a thin folder on the desk, Harlow Hayes, West 47th, the child, the medical record. Caliph did not immediately reach for it. He sat very still. His hand rested beside the river stone. Then, quietly, he asked, "How long does the child have if the treatment is not started. Alaric's expression answered before his words did. Caliph picked up the folder. He read it through once, set it down, read it again. Package the Lumina signature Barbie from the window display, he said at last. Pink dress, silver ribbon. He paused. And pull the lease records for the West 47th building. I know what you're going to say. Don't. Alaric said nothing. He had served Caliph for 3 centuries. He recognized the tone. The rain fell harder against the glass. Caliph murmured to the empty room, to the stone on his desk. Perhaps. Or to someone who had been gone for 400 years. One small act, perhaps enough to remind me what I was, before all of this. The city spread below him, wet and silver and indifferent. And somewhere at the far edge of his surveillance network, in a frame his cameras barely caught, a shape moved through the shadows near the Lumina window. Not one of his, watching the same building, watching the same child. But for very different reasons, he stepped out of the shadows at 8:47 in the evening. No dramatic entrance, no sweep of a coat, just a tall man walking through the rain, holding a box wrapped in silver ribbon that caught the neon pink light from the Lumina window like something lifted out of a dream. Harlow saw him first. She was at the crosswalk, Luna's hand tucked in hers, waiting for the light. And her body went still in that particular way of a woman who has learned to pay attention to things that feel slightly off. She turned her head. Gray eyes, calm face, rain on his shoulders like he hadn't noticed it. The kind of stillness that should have been unsettling. Somehow, it wasn't. He stopped a few feet away, not close enough to crowd. She noticed that. His voice, when it came, was low, unhurried. I happened to overhear, he said, earlier. I apologize for that. He extended the box, not toward Luna, toward her. She noticed that too. Perhaps it will make her birthday a little brighter. Harlow stared at the box. Then she took one step back. Sir, her voice held steady, which was impressive given what her heart was doing. I don't know you. I can't accept that. He didn't push it forward, didn't argue, simply held it, patient as someone who has learned that most things worth waiting for require exactly that. It isn't really from me, he said. Something moved behind his eyes. Old, and not entirely at ease with being spoken. Think of it as being from someone who once understood what it costs to want more for your child than you're able to give. The light changed. Neither of them moved. Harlow studied him the way you study something that doesn't quite add up. Coat expensive, face young, eyes carrying a weight that didn't match either one. She had a neighbor years ago, old Mr. Calloway, who had lost his wife after 51 years and still set 2 coffee cups out every morning from pure muscle memory. His eyes had looked like this. Not sad, exactly, just worn smooth, like sea glass, like something that had been through too much water for too long to have any sharp edges left. She recognized that look. She saw it in mirrors often enough. What she did not yet understand, and would not for some time, was that the weight behind his eyes was not the ordinary accumulation of one hard life. It was the weight of many lives. Of watching everything cycle through beginnings and endings while he remained unchanged at the center of it. Grief multiplied across centuries does not become easier. It becomes quieter. And somehow that was worse. The silence of it. The way it stopped announcing itself and simply became part of the furniture of a person's interior. Before she could answer, Luna let go of her hand. One second the small fingers were tucked in hers. The next, Luna had taken 2 steps forward with the absolute confidence of a child who sees no reason to hesitate. Looking up at Caliph with her wide, serious, dreamer's eyes. "Is it for me?" she asked. He crouched, all that height folding precisely in half, which was oddly graceful, and held the box out at her level. "Happy birthday," he said quietly. "A little early." Luna took the box in both hands with great care, pulled the silver ribbon loose, lifted the lid. The sound she made, that sharp, breathless, joyful little gasp, followed by something that was not quite a laugh and not quite a cry, but was entirely, perfectly 6 years old, broke something open in the cold air of that street corner, something that had been closed for a long time. "Mommy!" Luna clutched the box to her chest, spinning once. "She looks just like me! She looks just like me!" She beamed up at Caliph without a trace of hesitation. "You came! I drew your crown and everything, and you actually came!" Caliph stayed crouched a moment longer than necessary, looking at her. Alaric, watching from 30 yards away via earpiece, had not seen that expression on his face in over a century. He didn't have a word for it. Older languages had tried. None had quite managed it. Then Caliph straightened. Harlow broke. Not loudly. She had never been a loud crier. Her shoulders came up and then dropped. One hand pressed to her mouth, and the tears came down. Not from embarrassment, not from relief alone, but from the weight of 3 months of midnight cleaning shifts and skipped lunches and parking garage crying sessions, and $12 in her coat pocket. All of it finally finding somewhere to go. "I don't understand," she managed. "Why would anyone—" Caliph had already turned his face away. Not rudeness, necessity. His eyes had gone red at the edges. Just barely. Luna's blood. That ancient, rare, agonizing scent, close enough now to be overwhelming, had moved through him like a tide, sudden and enormous. He was managing it with everything he had, which across 4 centuries had become considerable, but not effortless, never entirely effortless. He bit the inside of his lip. Hard. Used the sharp return of focus the way you use a cold splash of water. A deliberate snap back to the present, to the choice, to the voice that lived somewhere beneath 400 years of everything else. "You will choose the light," he breathed. Once, twice, turned back. Gray eyes again, face composed. "We're hiring seasonal staff at the Lumina warehouse. If you need work, give them my name." He produced a small white card and held it out without ceremony. "They'll be expecting you." The black car was already there, sleek, quiet, appearing from the rain the way expensive things appear when certain people call for them silently. He stepped in. The door closed without a sound. The car moved down the wet street and was gone. Harlow stood on the sidewalk, card in one hand, box in the other, rain on her face. Luna tucked her hand back into her mother's and leaned against her arm. "I told you," she said, with complete satisfaction. "I told you he just wasn't ready yet." Harlow looked down at the plain white card. One name, one number, nothing else. She whispered it to the rain. What kind of man does something like that, and then just disappears? What she did not know. Standing on that sidewalk, rain on her shoulders, card in her hand, was that the eyes watching from the far end of the street had seen every moment of it, had noted the girl, had noted the scent, had noted which shadows Caliph had stepped out of, and had already begun making plans of their own. Don't go anywhere, because Monday morning, Harlow walks through a door that was opened for her without her knowledge, and what she finds waiting on the other side will raise a question she won't be able to stop asking. Sunday evening, November 16th. The apartment on West 47th was small in the way that honest places are small. Not sad, just exact. The kitchen table had the wobbly leg. The lampshade was slightly crooked. A string of paper stars Luna had made last February still hung above the window. A little dusty, very cheerful. Harlow had found 2 emergency candles in the junk drawer, the birthday cake kind, with the waxy-colored coating. She pressed them into the center of a cupcake baked from a box mix that was nearly past its date. The frosting was chocolate. Luna had asked for pink, but the food coloring had run out 3 weeks ago. And Harlow had said, with great solemnity, that chocolate was actually what princesses preferred. And Luna had considered this and accepted it as established fact. On the table, propped against the napkin holder, sat the Barbie, silver ribbon draped around her like a sash. Luna had repositioned her twice already to make sure she had the best view of the room. Harlow lit the candles with the long fireplace lighter that had belonged to her mother. Still in the junk drawer after all this time. Still working, which felt like a quiet miracle every single time. She dimmed the overhead light. The 2 small flames made the room go gold. She sang Happy Birthday quietly. Her voice only wavered once. Luna blew out both candles in a single breath, which she considered a point of personal pride. "What did you wish for?" Harlow asked. Luna held the Barbie up to examine her in the candlelight. "I wished for the prince to be less sad," she said. "He's carrying something really heavy. I could see it when he smiled. It was like a door opening just a crack and then closing again." Harlow set down the lighter. "When did you become so perceptive?" she asked softly. Luna set the Barbie back in her place of honor against the napkin holder. "I've always been perceptive," she said. "You just don't always notice." Harlow stood at the sink for a moment, facing the small, dark window, and felt something shift in her chest that she hadn't felt in a long time. Not hope, exactly. Quieter than that. More like the way the air smells 20 minutes after a summer storm. Washed clean, and strangely wide open. She thought about the card, still sitting on the counter by the toaster. 1 name, 1 number. She had picked it up 4 times today, set it down 4 times. Not because she doubted whether to call, she had decided she would, but because each time she reached for it, she felt the full weight of what it meant. To need help, to accept it from a stranger, to walk through a door someone else had opened without asking your permission first. She understood that the door was a gift. She also understood that walking through it required something of her that pride had always resisted surrendering. She put the cupcake wrapper in the trash and did not say what she was thinking. Monday morning, November 17th. The Lumina warehouse sat on the west side, ordinary from the outside, and something else entirely within. Clean floors, good light, staff who moved with a calm purpose that Harlow recognized, without yet having a name for it, as something distinct from ordinary workplace competence. Alaric met her at the front desk. He appeared to be somewhere around 40, broad-shouldered, steady, with kind, dark eyes and that same quality of composed stillness she had noticed. Briefly, in Caliph, he smiled when he saw her, genuinely, the kind that reaches the eyes without effort. "You must be Harlow," he said. "We've been expecting you." He called ahead, in a manner of speaking. Something moved through Alaric's expression. Not evasion, exactly. More like amusement held at a precise and deliberate distance. He rarely explains his reasoning. But his instincts about people are consistent. The pay rate, when Alaric named it, made Harlow go very still. She did the math twice, quickly. That's considerably more than I was making before. The role has real responsibility, Alaric said. I think you'll find it suits you. He paused, his manner shifting in a way she noticed but couldn't quite read. There's also the matter of your housing. An adjustment to your outstanding arrears was processed with your landlord this morning. 3 months. Settled. Harlow set down her bag slowly. I didn't ask for that. No, Alaric agreed. Who authorized? Anonymous, he said. Gently, firmly, the way someone closes a door without making a sound. She pressed 2 fingers to her lips, breathed through her nose, told herself with some urgency, do not cry in what is technically a job orientation. She managed. Barely. He knows things about me that a stranger has no business knowing, she said. Not accusing. Exactly. Something quieter than that. My rent, my daughter's birthday, what I needed before I even asked. How? Alaric was quiet for a moment, with the patience of someone who has answered adjacent versions of this question across several decades. He pays attention, he said. He has, for a very long time, to more than most people would think to notice. He held her gaze 1 beat past comfortable. You'll understand that better as time goes on. Then his eyes moved, a small, involuntary flicker, to something just past her right shoulder, and his hand rose to the discreet device at his ear. My lord. His voice dropped to near silence. The rogue faction is no longer stationary. They moved through the West 47th Corridor last night. They're not just watching anymore. They're mapping. The warmth in the room changed quality. Harlow was being handed paperwork by a smiling assistant and did not hear the words. But she saw Alaric's face, saw the pleasant professional manner settle into something harder underneath. Something with a different kind of edge entirely. 40 floors up, in an office lit by a single lamp. Caliph heard the report and did not move for several seconds. Then his hand found the river stone on the desk, closed around it. He had failed to protect them once. His wife, his daughter. On a December night 4 centuries ago, when he had been half a mile away and had arrived to find only silence. He had carried that silence in a closed fist ever since. Not as a wound he had been unable to close, but as a reminder he refused to set down. Because men who forget what they have cost become men who are willing to cost it again. He would not become that man. Not in this century. Not in any century remaining to him. He would not carry it again. Full perimeter on West 47th, he said. Every entrance, continuous. His voice was level. And Alaric, she is not to know the nature of the threat yet. Not until I can tell her myself. Below, a black town car pulled up to the curb. A woman with light brown hair and a canvas bag got in. Starting her first day, unaware of what had already begun to move through the dark outside her building. Not yet. I chose to help them, Caliph said. To the window, to the stone, to no one. His jaw tightened. That means I answer for what comes next. Months passed. The wobbly kitchen table leg got fixed. Harlow did it herself on a Sunday afternoon with a butter knife and a screw she found in the junk drawer. And it held perfectly, which she took as a sign that things in general were beginning to hold. A new lampshade arrived, pale yellow, like butter. Luna approved it after a careful inspection. The medication Luna had started through an anonymous medical trust, set up by Alaric with the brisk efficiency of someone who had arranged similar things in other cities. For other people, Caliph had quietly decided mattered. Was working. Not dramatically, not all at once, but the doctor's timeline, which had felt like a lit fuse, began to slow, then to stabilize. The stone in Harlow's chest did not disappear. It never entirely would. But it became smaller, lighter, more like a pebble than a boulder. She was promoted twice at the warehouse in 4 months. Luna, for her part, had taken to leaving small drawings on the front desk of the lobby whenever Harlow brought her in after school. Barbies, mostly, and sometimes, often, actually, a tall figure with dark hair and a crown, drawn with the careful attention she gave things she considered important. The receptionist had started saving them in a folder without being asked. No one mentioned it. Everyone noticed. It was a Tuesday evening in early March when Harlow found her way to the office at the end of the hall. Not entirely by accident. She'd been asked to deliver end-of-quarter paperwork to the executive floor, the assistant usually responsible being out sick, and Harlow being the last person at her desk. The elevator opened onto a hallway lit by amber wall sconces, warm in a way that had nothing to do with the efficient, fluorescent normalcy of the floors below. The door at the end was open a few inches. She knocked. "Come in," said a voice she recognized, unhurried, low. The office was lit by 2 candles on the desk and the gray-silver sprawl of the city through the floor-to-ceiling window behind him. The rest was shadow. Caleb sat behind the desk. He looked exactly the same as he had on that sidewalk in November. He always looked exactly the same. She set the paperwork down. He thanked her. She had been planning to leave. "Why did you help us?" she asked instead. He was quiet long enough that she thought he might not answer at all. "I had a daughter once," he said finally. "A very long time ago. She collected smooth stones from the river and lined them up on the windowsill by size. She called it her collection." He looked at the candle. "Luna reminded me of her." "What happened to her?" he told her. Not everything. Context she didn't yet have. History that required more than one Tuesday evening to explain. But enough. The Middle Ages, the winter, the hunters, a wife who laughed easily, a daughter with river stones on a windowsill. The centuries since, empty in a way that he had grown practiced at surviving but had never, not once, made peace with. She took a step back when he finished. She won't pretend otherwise. The fear was real, cold, immediate. The specific disorientation of having the ground shift under something you thought was solid. But his eyes, she kept returning to his eyes. Gray, exhausted, and watching her right now with the held breath stillness of someone who has spoken a true thing and is quietly braced for the cost of it. She knew that expression. She'd worn it herself. In doctors' offices, in parking garages, in kitchens at 2 a.m. Pain did not care what form it wore. It kept the same face across all of them. She had feared many things in her 32 years. Eviction, medical bills, the particular helplessness of watching someone you love suffer something you cannot fix with love alone. What she had not feared, and did not fear now, in this candlelit room with this impossible man, was cruelty. Whatever Caleb was, he was not cruel. She understood that the way she understood things that bypassed the rational mind entirely. The same way she understood whether a room was safe the moment she entered it. The same way mothers understand things about people before the words come. "You're not what I was afraid you were," she said, slowly. "You're someone who lost everything and has been trying to figure out what to do with the time left over." Something in his face shifted. Not dramatically. More the way light changes in a room when someone opens a curtain that's been drawn a very long time. She stepped forward and placed her hand over his on the desk. Brief. Light. Just an acknowledgement. I see you, and I am not leaving the room. He looked down at their hands as if cataloging the sensation carefully, making sure he'd remember it. The attack came 3 weeks later, a Thursday night. Storm outside. The apartment lights on West 47th flickering in a way that Harlow had been meaning to mention to the super for a week. She heard the window first. Not the sound rain makes on glass, but something heavier. Something that had intention in it, and pulled Luna off the couch before it shattered inward. They came from the dark, like the dark had learned to move on its own. Then Caliph was between them, and whatever had come through that window. Sudden, silent, moving at a speed her eyes could not track no matter how hard she tried. Eyes blazing red, the color she'd seen once before on a rainy sidewalk and convinced herself she'd imagined. His coat tore. The dark stain spreading through the fabric was unmistakable. He did not step back. Not once. When it was over. Quickly. Because he was very old, and they were not. He turned around. He was breathing hard. He didn't physiologically need to breathe. He did it anyway. Luna's face was pressed into Harlow's back. Then, slowly, she looked out. Uncle Caliph. The name came out like she'd always used it. Natural. Settled. As if it had always been true and she'd simply been waiting for the right moment to say it out loud. You're bleeding. He looked down at his side with the faint surprise of a very capable person encountering a limitation they had. Briefly. Forgotten they had. A little, he said. Harlow looked at him across the ruined living room. Rain coming through the broken window. Glass on the floor. This man who had put himself between her daughter and the dark and stayed there. She didn't have words for it yet. She wasn't sure words were the right tool. What he agreed to in a quiet room later that night. At a cost she wouldn't learn until morning, would be the most important decision he had made in 487 years. The clan's medical facility had the particular hush of a place where serious things are taken seriously. Clean, quiet, efficient. With none of the fluorescent anxiety of ordinary hospitals. More like a library that had decided to heal people. Caliph had been in the chair beside Luna's bed for 6 hours. He had not moved significantly. Alaric stood at the door. My lord, the serum is prepared. Caliph looked at Luna. Small in the bed. Pale. Asleep. The Barbie doll tucked against her pillow because Harlow had thought to bring it. And that single detail had done something to him. In the elevator on the way up, that he was still quietly accounting for. His ancient blood. Properly diluted through a process his medical historians had spent 3 weeks verifying, would stabilize her lineage from the inside, address the mutation at its source, do what no human treatment had reached. It would not change what she was. He had gone through the calculations 4 times to be certain. But there was a cost, a fragment of his accumulated power, the deep, ancient kind that does not regenerate, the kind built across 5 centuries of survival, would be used in the binding. He would not become mortal, but he would become measurably less of what he had been, measurably more of something else. Something he was still working out the name for. He had sat with this decision for an hour in the dark. Not because he was uncertain. He had been certain from the moment he understood the cost. But because he wanted to be honest with himself about what he was surrendering. Not to grieve it. He was beyond grieving things he chose to release. But to witness it. To say, this mattered, and I gave it anyway. Because that is what it means to truly give something rather than merely spend it. He had not told Harlow. He told Alaric to proceed. Luna woke at 7 in the morning. The doctor reviewed the monitors with the careful attention of someone who has learned not to assume outcomes, and then looked at Caliph with an expression that said more than she put into words. "The mutation is resolving," she said. "We'll monitor, but I believe." Yes. Luna opened her eyes, found the ceiling, found the Barbie, found Caliph, still in the chair. "Uncle Caliph." Small voice, morning rough. "You stayed." "Yes." She considered him with great seriousness. "You have sad eyes, but they're a little less sad than before." She tilted her head. "I think that means it's working." He said nothing for a moment. "Get some rest," he said. "Finally. You can tell me what you think is working later." Luna smiled. Small, certain, entirely satisfied, and closed her eyes. He reached over and straightened the Barbie's silver ribbon against the pillow. Then he sat back, and for the first time in a very long time, longer than he could precisely measure, he did not feel the particular grinding weight of a man waiting for the next thing to go wrong. He just sat, in a quiet room, with the sound of a child breathing steadily, healthily, in the morning light. It was, he thought, an extraordinary thing. Harlow found him in the hallway an hour later, standing at the window, the city gray and early in the rain outside, looking like someone who has just set down something they have carried for a very long time and is still getting used to the absence of the weight. She stood beside him, said nothing, for a moment. He told her what he had done, the serum, the cost, what the cost meant. In the direct, quiet way he had of saying difficult things. No theater, no softening. Just the truth laid plainly on the table between them. She listened until he finished. Then she turned to face him. "You gave up part of yourself," she said. "For a child you met 2 months ago on a sidewalk." "I knew her enough," he said. She reached up, slowly, deliberately, giving him every moment to step back if he needed to, and put her arms around him. He was very still. Then, with the careful hesitation of someone relearning something their body had almost forgotten, he put his arms around her in return. And Caliph. 4 centuries of survival, 4 centuries of solitude, 4 centuries of standing in the rain alone on nights exactly like this one, cried, quietly, once. The way a door opens that has been shut for so long the hinges have gone stiff. Not dramatically, just finally. Harlow held on and did not say anything wise. She had learned, across 32 years of being a person in the world, that some moments don't need improvement. They just need someone to stay in them. 3 weeks later, on a soft December evening, the 3 of them stood together in front of the Lumina Toys window. The display had changed. New dolls, new lights, but the pink glow was the same. Luna stood between them, one hand in Harlow's, studying the window with the evaluative focus of a seasoned expert. "Better arrangement than before," she said. "But the Barbie was still better when she was mine." Caliph looked at Harlow over Luna's head. Harlow looked back. Something passed between them. No words needed, none sufficient. And it was the kind of moment that gets kept in the quiet place, where the things that actually matter are stored. Like the good china you finally started using on ordinary Tuesday evenings. Like the porch swing that still creaks the same way it did in 1987. Like the chipped navy mug you still set out every morning. Just because. Luna reached up and took Caliph's hand with her free one, linked the 3 of them together. "Diner," she said, with authority. "Hot chocolate. The marshmallows." Both kinds. That's not how it works, Harlow said. It is tonight, said Luna. Caliph looked down at the small hand in his. Then, quietly, unexpectedly, the way a sound comes from a room you thought was empty. He laughed. A real one. Low. A little rusty. Like a door that hasn't turned on its hinges in a very long time. Alaric, watching from across the street, hands in his coat pockets, allowed himself a private and genuine smile. 487 years. A crayon crown. A child who waved at strangers in the dark. Worth it, he thought. Entirely. This story teaches us one quiet truth. Kindness is not a feeling. It is a decision, made in the cold, in the dark, when no one is watching and it would be far easier not to. So this week, just once, try this. The next time you notice a neighbor's light on past 10 at night, knock on their door the next morning with 1 extra cup of coffee. Say simply, I saw your light. I just wanted to check. No advice, no agenda, just the act of showing up. That is what Caliph did on a cold sidewalk in November. He simply showed up, and that changed everything. The smallest door, opened at the right moment, can let in enough light to last 400 years. This vampire tale was born from a real human soul, full of emotion, contradiction, and longing. I was merely a companion who helped arrange the words to be as beautiful and clear as possible. That's why you'll find it not only terrifying, but also very human.